So, Jason, to start with, I just wondered when you first realised that you had the ability to make people laugh and how that kind of manifested itself.
I don't know. I mean, I'm probably like as a kid with my family, I think I was very much a, run around trying to make everybody laugh kind of kid. A bit of a class clown, that kind of, I would say like in that, 7, 8, 9 years old kind of silly way. Yeah.
And coming onto the house, what was your initial reaction when you read the screenplay for the first time?
Oh, I loved it. I knew the writers were Andrew Cohen, who also directed it, and then his writing partner, Brendan O'Brien, both of whom I've known for years. They wrote Neighbors, which I had a small part in, and they wrote Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates. So I've known those guys for a long time. So I was A, just excited to read their new script because I'm a fan of their writing, and then B, I was reading it because they had said there's a part in it that, we were thinking of you potentially doing it. So it was really fun to read and be like, oh, I would love to do this, And then, of course, I auditioned for it and had to go in and have meetings and all the process of getting the part. But it was really great to read and be like, because Amy and Will were already doing it, and so I was reading it with them, thinking of them as those roles. So it was neat.
And I think with your character and with Amy and Will's character, there's a degree of like realism there. It's kind of grounded in some sense of reality, I think, and a little bit like with Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne's characters in Neighbours. And how important do you think it is to have that element in a comedy movie? Probably more than a sketch, I'd say. But
for sure,
yeah.
I think especially if you want the audience to buy into the more intense, insane elements of the movie. Like, I think if you want the audience to kind of buy that we would chop people's fingers off, that people would fight each other in our house, that if you to earn all of that, I think you have to start from a place that is recognizable, that has universal appeal to everybody. I think everybody can understand all of these dynamics, whether I think people can understand the nervousness and anxiety around how much money it costs to send a child to college. I think everybody can understand the anxiety of what happens when our kid goes to school and we're alone together for the first time in 18 years. What's that going to be like? I think people understand, the heartbreak of your spouse leaving you and you having, an addictive personality and spiraling out of control for that. I think all of our characters are coming from places that are recognizable and then go to places that people would genuinely never go, which is, I think, but is kind of necessary for people to enjoy the movie. Otherwise, you would just be watching what you're saying, like a sketch of crazy people acting crazy, which you can't really do for 90 minutes. It's fun for a little while, but you need that arc, that growth.
And thinking of the original screenplay that we were talking about a minute ago, how much of that is the finished film and how much is improv? Because obviously a lot of the cast have got improv backgrounds.
Sure,
yeah.
We definitely improvised a lot, but we're improvising within the context of what the script was. So, while there might be jokes or lines or stuff that are straight improv in the movie, it's all built on the structure of the scenes that those guys wrote, and more often than not, the jokes are also what they wrote. It's improvising is always best when built off of a strong script. It's really hard to improvise off of something that kind of isn't there or doesn't work, because then you're trying to fix or kind of find something. But in this, it was already structurally sound, the movie and the plot and everything. So really it just became like, we have this joke, we already did that. What if we did one where we did this, and somebody would just say something different? And so there are definitely jokes in there that are part of that, and we improvised quite a bit, which was really fun.
And can we talk a bit about where your character is in his life, kind of when we first meet him in the film and how he gets involved in this underground casino in the suburbs?
Yeah. So my character is, when the movie starts, his wife has left. He's got a gambling addiction. His wife has left him. The bank is foreclosed on his house. He's really like spiraling out of control. He's like losing his mind. He's a mess. And he is, old college friends with Amy and Will. He's like their old friend. And basically when they get into trouble and need money for their daughter's college education, my character rather desperately says, we should start a casino, basically. It's his idea to be like, we could make money quick if we just basically were the casino for all of our in our neighborhood. And that's the kind of catalyst that gets this whole thing going, which is opening a casino in my, empty house and taking all of our neighbors' money.
And there are some things in the movie as it goes on that become quite extreme, like we mentioned the finger being cut off, and the Will's face is kind of covered in blood at one point. When you're on set, though, how quickly do you get used to all of that and it just becomes quite normal?
Oh, yeah. Well, it becomes quite normal, but also, like, some of those physical gags, like, those were really fun to shoot just because we don't know, it says in the script, like, oh, chop the finger off, blah, blah, blah. But, like, when you get there and they hook up the rig and they do all the work and it looks amazing. But then the amount of blood that they pushed through that hose was crazy. And really, those are the takes that are I'm trying hard to not laugh during, because you can only do so many of those, and they're always surprising because we're not planning for that. Everybody's saying clever things or being funny. Everybody cracks up and it's great. But like the fist fight, the Andrea Savage Lennon Parham fist fight, or the finger and the blood, those were like, whoa, like, this is crazy. This is exciting. It was great.
And sometimes when it comes to a blooper reel at the end of a movie, my heart sinks a little bit because sometimes they're not very funny. But I would tell people to stay in their seats for the blooper reel on the house. It's very, very funny.
Great, yeah.
And it just looked like you had so much fun on set.
Yeah.
Could you just tell us a bit about the atmosphere and working with Amy and Will?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, this movie is a very rare occurrence, I think, because it really is a group of people, almost all of whom have known each other for a long time and who've worked together a lot, in many respects. So it was really just like showing up to a place that all of your funniest friends are at and just trying to crack each other up, both while the cameras were rolling and not. Like a lot of times while they were setting up shots and whatever, we'd just be off to the side, just like doing bits and being funny. And it was really lovely. It was fun. It was relaxed. It had it was very comfortable vibe on set. It was really great.
And when it comes to sort of edgy comedy, how do you find the right balance of not pushing things too far? And is it just, can you only really rely on yourself and your own judgment there in some ways?
A little bit. I think a little bit. And I also think you have to rely on the director and the editors and the people, because sometimes you're not sure. So we might do a scene, different way, 3-4 different ways, unclear exactly when you cut it into the movie, how far should it go? This would happen a lot on the TV show The League that I was on, where we would all think of something that we thought was really funny, but it might be too crazy. But really, we're just giving the director options. You could do it this way, you could do it that way. Here's 4 different versions of this punchline. Some that might be way over the line, and some that might be not close enough, And so sometimes I think it, and then sometimes you really are just giving them options.
And obviously in the film, Vegas kind of gets brought to the suburbs, and I know what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Sure.
Have you had any sort of wild nights out there? Is it a place that you like to go to?
I'm not a big Vegas person, so I don't have really too many like wild Vegas stories, sadly. No, I've been certainly with friends, but they tend to be pretty tame nights, nothing wild.
And what advice would you give to anyone that wanted to open up their own underground suburban casino, maybe in their home?
Oh, of course. My advice would be do it. I think it's a great way to make money. I can't see any downside to it. I mean, except for the fact that it's illegal. I think everybody should do this. I think use this movie as a real how-to. This movie is in many ways a manual for how to set up an underground casino in your house in the suburbs.
I'm a big podcast fan, and I just came across How Did This Get Made,
Yeah, sure.
a podcast that you're...
It's my podcast, yeah.
Tell us about the idea for that, and if...
So it's a podcast called How Did This Get Made that I do with Paul Scheer and June Diane Raphael, and we have a guest on, and the whole idea of the podcast is that we've watched a bad movie, and it grew out of... We were all at a party with some other friends and just randomly had all just seen Wall Street Money Never Sleeps, and were had like a 1 hour conversation at the table, all of us just like, what was that? That was crazy. And just like, what about this part? And oh my God, can you believe that? And the whole conversation was just, everybody was so fired up and so passionate to talk about what a mess this movie was. And afterwards, I was talking to Paul and I was saying, you know, like that whole conversation, that's a podcast I would listen, because podcast, it was like 2010, 2011 maybe. I was like, that conversation is a podcast I would listen to. Like, just funny people, like the conversation that happens after you've watched a movie with your friends and you just go to the bar and talk about it. And he was like, yeah, let's do that. And so now here we are 200 episodes later. That's what we do. We watch bad movies and we talk about them with our friends.
And has that really changed the way you watch movies now, thinking, oh God, this is a contender for the podcast?
Sometimes, yeah, absolutely. Sometimes, especially you'll see a trailer like Triple X, The Return of Xander Cage. I saw that trailer when he rides a motorcycle on top of the water, and I was like, we're 100% going to have to do this movie. And we did, and it was amazing. Yeah, no, but it's like, certainly, like, there's plenty of movies to do, you know, and there's things that are favorites of ours, you know, personal favorites of ours. But then now it's nice, like, there's such a fan base and a community that's grown around this podcast that we get just a lot of movies suggested to us by fans that we didn't know about previously. So a lot of my favorite episodes are ones that are because somebody was like, oh, you got to check out this movie. I've never heard of it. I put it on and I'm like, my mind is blown, you know, because there's some really nuts movies out there.
Yeah, I definitely need to look through the list, see everything that you've covered, and come up with some more suggestions.
Please suggest, because we always need more. Yeah.
And just finally, I just wondered who your British comedy heroes or heroines might be, and if you've had a chance to work with them or meet them.
Yeah, no. To meet them, I mean, I worked with Sacha Baron Cohen on The Dictator, and that was a really big. I remember very clearly the first time that a guy in New York, when we were kind of starting out in comedy, was like, come over, he said to our whole group, you come over to my house, I got something you guys all got to check out. And he had a tape of like the British Ali G stuff. And we were all like, whoa. And that's like a very kind of great era of British comedy. You've got all the stuff that like Chris Morris was doing, Brass Eye, Nathan Barley, and then Day Today. We were all very into that. And then the British Office when that came out. Similarly, we were all like really like blown away by that when that started up. Although I really loved, all of Charlie Brooker's stuff I think is great. Dead Set I loved. Obviously Black Mirror is terrific. What's it called? The Wipe, that year-end wrap-up that he does I think is great. Going back, like Monty Python came on PBS here when I was, I don't know, like a teenager, like 13, 14 years old. That was like mind-blowing to me in terms of like introducing me to sketch comedy that wasn't like SNL or, you know, things that were American sketch TV programs. Monty Python was so radically different and so exciting in that respect. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I loved I'm a fan of just like, you know, Mighty Boosh, all the kind of Snuffbox, Time Trumpet, all of it. Look Around You, I love. Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, I loved when they were doing that. Like, there's just been, I'd say, like a tremendous amount of fantastic British comedy that's come out in the last 15 years, a lot of which, as like an American comedy nerd, we all were like constantly trying to get our hands on it, you know? And it was like, who has the DVD player that will play British format DVDs because somebody just got Nathan Barley and we're all going to go there and watch it, that kind of thing.
And it's become so much easier with all the streaming services.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now you really can just pass stuff around. Like, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Yeah. But it used to be a much bigger production to be like, I got this thing. We got to find someplace that we can go watch it.
Jason Mantzoukas, thanks very much.
Of course.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey, you guys!